Could be a wild day today. Sounds like a fortuitous number. I uploaded a video last week. Some of you may have seen it and realized it didn't have any sound. When I'm in the car, I often am using my phone to listen to music off my phone, or listen to a YouTube video, or listen to podcasts or something like that when I'm driving. So anyway, I threw the phone up to make a video for y'all, and did this with 2 videos last week actually, and left the auxiliary cable in, not understanding that my phone won't. It's when the auxiliary cable's in, it's automatically turning off the microphone, the external mic. I don't have any kind of special mic on this thing. I just use the mic that's already there on the phone. And I'm going to go ahead, I've got the power cable in right now. I'm going to go ahead and unplug that just so it'll stand up better. It's doing fine on power anyway. So I put up 2 videos that didn't have any sound. So this is one that I really had, it seemed like an interesting subject that I had my own ideas. A lot of times I just am talking to you guys about whatever it is I'm sort of thinking about, and I'm trying to put it into some kind of context that makes sense to share. But really, it's just about me sort of, going through my own process, my own thinking and ideas, in the midst of my own creative projects, whatever it is you guys are doing, and what I'm doing. I'm just sort of trying to share some of the inside insights. So I did a little video about starting a writing practice. And there's a number of reasons to do it. Like one, I don't want to get too far off. When I made the first video, I felt like I was kind of all over the place. So with that in mind, I want to break this up a little bit. So the reason why a writing practice is important, okay, is because the number one reason why it's important. The first one is that it's going to give your editorial mind, okay, your like critical decision-making brain, okay, is going to be able to focus on perfecting a writing practice, right? Asking all sorts of questions, having all kinds of doubts, thinking it through, wondering if there's a way to make it better, wondering if there's a way to sort of improvise or, adapt some elements of what might be considered the ideal writing practice to create something practical that will fit in your life. All that stuff. It gives the critical part of your mind a place to spend its energy, so that it's not in your way when you're writing. Okay. That's the hardest thing about writing is writing. Write that down. But no, what I mean by that is that the actual production of written work is the thing that makes writing hard. And the thing that makes the actual production of written work difficult is often the first word, the first sentences, that fucking, the intimidation of the blank page, that's the thing that freezes writers, right? That's the thing that'll shut off your fucking imagination in a heartbeat, right? And so a writing practice gives you 2 things that help you with that. Number one, as I said, it gives the editorial part of your mind that's actually what's getting in your way. You're in your own way in this situation. When the blank page freezes you, that's you doing that to yourself. That's you're a wizard and you don't know how to do it yet, and your spells are going off and they're fucking you up. They should be fucking up this piece of paper, right? And you'll get that worked out if you give yourself something else to focus all that fucking anxiety on, all that intellectual anxiety that needs somewhere else to go. So the practice creates a distraction for that part of your head, right? That's good. The other thing that a practice does, we call it a practice, is it gives you practice. It creates a framework of discipline upon which you can build the act of becoming a better writer, okay? And that's the part I'm going to talk about today, okay? I needed to kind of say all of that, but I'm going to come back to this first part later, how the writing practice gives you this distraction. But I think most practically and most immediately, what has to be addressed for a writing practice are the elements of space and time, because these are the two points that begin to define what the practice will be, the space and the time. I guess the other one is the writer themselves, probably. That's probably the structure of a writing practice as a triangle, right? We love the triangle, right? So space and time, that's what we're going to talk about now. When I'm talking about space, what I'm saying is that ideally your writing practice will take place in the same place every time. Okay, so the first thing you want to start thinking about, and go ahead and think about it. This is the distracted part that I like. Put your fucking energy into thinking about where should you be writing. Is your kitchen table a practical place to write at? It sounds like a practical place. It sounds like it might be a practical place during certain times. Okay, and we're going to get to that in a minute. Is your backyard, on a blanket under a tree? Is that a practical place for you to be a writer? Is there some place that you go when you're not at day job? You're leaving your day job for lunch. Is there a way for you to take out a journal and do some writing during your lunch break? Any of these things could possibly be an option. So go ahead and make a list if that's helpful, and just think it through. Think about your day and see where you can fit in, honestly, to start with, that's going to be one of the questions about time. Okay. But where you can put in a little bit of writing, that's all we really have to be talking about at this time. We're just trying to figure out where can you get some writing done regularly. Okay. Where can you do that? All right. If you're lucky enough to have the space, to have, some kind of a studio, that you can use, that's great. Say you have an extra bedroom in your home, maybe you run a home business out of it or something like that. If your home business is writing, then you spending time there working on your creative writing is probably totally doable. Though I know there's questions about taxes involved in some of this stuff when it comes to your home office. So that can be, your home office sort of needs to be exclusive to the business that you're claiming it for. So if your home business is for something else, technically you're not supposed to use that as a writing space. Also, I don't think anybody would know necessarily. So anyway, in your house, if you have a place that you can dedicate to your writing, then that's probably good, because it sounds like it's very convenient. Suddenly you don't have to get into a car to go there. Okay. You don't have to jump outside and put on a coat and everything else and go to the writing place, so that could be good. That could be really good. That said, as I mentioned, what about your lunch? When you're having lunch, where do you go? Is that a place and a time when you could write? A famous poet, Frank O'Hara, who is one of the New York school of poets who sort of come after the Beat generation. Frank O'Hara would literally write poems on his lunch break. He actually has a collection of poems called Lunch Poems, which is literally he was a curator. I think an assistant curator was his actual title at the Museum of Modern Art in New York, and also one of the most important art critics of his generation and curatorial writers and curators of his generation, but also, one of the best poets as well. So Frank O'Hara has a collection of poems called Lunch Poems, and that's when he would write them. He'd take a break from MoMA and he'd walk down the street and he'd write a poem while he was eating drinking a Coke. He's got a poem about drinking a Coke. So your writing space doesn't have to be some kind of ritualistic, sacred thing. Now, it can be. If that helps you write better, to have like a quiet corner of your house, and like, you know, you've got like candles burning or whatever, you know, there's a whole thing, and you take out you unwrap the cord and take it out of the velvet that you've wrapped it in, and you crack it open, and you've got a special pot of ink that you're using with a steel tipped pen or whatever, and that's what you need to do your writing. Then totally do that, completely do that. You know, have all of that shit going down in your space if that's what you need. If you can write poems or write, you know, work on your novel, or just work on your general creative writing practice, and or whatever it is that you're doing, you know, if there's a way for you to work on your writing while you're just sitting at a cafe eating a club sandwich, then that's great too. You know what I mean? And in some ways it's maybe preferable, because that's a very flexible thing. You know what I mean? And sometimes flexible helps you with maintaining a practice in some way or another. That brings us to time. How much time should you be doing this? I mean, honestly, if you're just sort of like trying to get yourself into the discipline of writing, if that's where you're at right now with your writing, then, I mean, any amount of dedicated time is good, okay? And consistent amounts of dedicated time, consistently dedicated, is what we really need, you know? So I would say, you know, even 15 minutes of really dedicated, focused effort to write, I really honestly, if you actually did 15 minutes and you stuck to making yourself do that, say 4 days a week during the work week, give yourself 1 day of the work week where you're not committed to that. Give yourself the weekend off. I mean, don't necessarily make this overwhelming thing. That's a great way to create failure for yourself, and everybody does it. You know, you overcommit to something you'll never fulfill, and then when you don't have the discipline to do it, well, there you go. That didn't help me either. You know what I mean? When the whole time it's like you sabotage the whole thing from the beginning. So don't do that. You know, find a minimum, you know, amount of time. I would say 15 minutes is practically speaking. I really honestly think 15 minutes is going to help you like crazy. If you do 15 minutes 4 times a week, okay? Anytime between Monday and Friday, you get to pick it can even be twice on the same day. I wouldn't recommend that though, because there's another aspect of time that we're going to talk about in a second. If you just did 15 minutes out of once a day during those 4 days, right? Those 5 days, you only have to do it 4 times. Take a day off if you want. If you get too busy or something gets crazy, or you know, whatever, you just don't feel good, whatever, you get sick, whatever's going on, you've got a day to play around in there and have a little bit of you know, flexibility. But if you did that at the end of the week, you would have spent a full hour writing. That would have been 1 hour of writing, you know, that if you're just beginning a writing practice, you're probably not doing hardly any writing. You know what I mean? So if all of a sudden every week you were producing 1 hour of dedicated writing practice, that would be very significant. It would add up really, really quickly. You'd quickly be filling up that journal, and you'd realize that you were slowly but surely actually becoming a writer, you know, because at the end of the day, a writer writes, man, you know. And what does that tell you? It tells you that it's about the practice, you know. That's how you don't become a writer because somebody published you, or because somebody gave you this award, or because somebody read your fucking book or whatever. That has nothing to do with it. You know, it has everything to do with writing. If everyone who said they were a writer actually wrote anything ever, hardly, it would be a miracle. You know, the fact is, you know, there's tons of people out there walking around telling you a writer, and it's like, you know, what, you wrote 1,000 words, you know, 5 months ago? What the fuck? You know, what are you talking about? You're not a writer. So, you know, that's what this is all about, this is how you actually become a writer, because you're a person who maintains a writing practice in one way or another, for profit or for creativity, whatever it is, whatever you're doing it for, that's it. That's the difference, right? So the other aspect of time that you have to consider when you're building this practice for yourself, so that you can emerge as the creative voice that you are, is the aspect of when you're writing. Okay, so it's not just like how long are you going to write for, but when are you going to write? And one of the other keys to building a strong writing practice, just like a dedicated space can be a key, A dedicated time is also a key and an important key. As I've kind of mentioned a minute ago, sometimes a place like your kitchen table, or the cafe at lunchtime. We're talking about places that at given times will be very convenient places to write. The cafe, at 10:30 might not be practical for you, because maybe you're a curator at a museum, or you're a person working in an office, or you're a dude swinging a hammer somewhere, or you're a lady working on a computer. Whatever it is that you're doing, whoever you are, you can't be at the cafe at 10 because you have to be at your job at 10, but you can be at the cafe at 12, and it's a perfectly acceptable place for you to do your writing. So that might be your practice. See, but the space and the time are tied together, right? Maybe your kitchen table is a terrible time when your kids are awake, but at early in the morning before the kids wake up, or after the kids go to bed or whatever, maybe suddenly your kitchen table is transformed into the greatest writing studio that man has ever known, right? So a lot of times our spaces and our times are going to be tied together for these reasons, right? But regardless, we want to find a place we can write in regularly and a time we can write at regularly. And part of the sort of voodoo that you're doing here is that you're subconsciously setting your brain up, right? So that when you walk into this space at this time, again, your brain is slowly being trained to know we're about to write. We're about to write, right? And that's one of the huge advantages of actually having a writing practice, is that you're going to get the bonus of being able to train your intelligence, train your imagination, train your creativity to be ready to actually what's the word I'm looking for? It's almost like an athlete trains, right? Suddenly, the bell rings, the boxer comes out, and he's just firing on every piston, man. It's just every cylinder is just working perfectly, or boom, the gun goes off, the runners leave the blocks, and it's the fastest man in the world, or the fastest lady in the world, or whatever. You know what I mean? Like an athlete who's trained to be 100% committed at the moment of performance, okay? Or like an artist who's a performer of some kind, a musician or something like this, dancer. You're setting yourself up for that. You're turning yourself into somebody who can sit down and turn on the faucet, and here comes the writing. And then get up 20 minutes later, turn off the faucet, walk away, knowing that you're coming back tomorrow. And that whole time, your head is anticipating it. Your heart is anticipating it. Your imagination, man, your imagination's working on the shit you already wrote today. It's got better ideas for tomorrow, And when you open up that door and sit in that chair, all of a sudden, boom. Oh, okay, yeah. This is going to be good. Probably before you even get there, you're on your way to lunch, and you're already repeating shit to yourself because these ideas are coming so fast and furious, right? You're repeating things to yourself, so as soon as you get a chance to sit down and order that sandwich and get your journal out, you already have a bunch of shit you got to write down so you don't forget it. That's one of the other big advantages of the writing practice, and it's related to the very first thing I said. The writing practice will give you something to busy your editorial mind with while you're getting down to the nitty-gritty of actually getting your writing done. Suddenly the blank page it's just not as intimidating anymore when it just becomes another time at practice. Just even the way I say, even then, I just like literally felt all this tension leave my chest, right? It's just another time at practice again with another blank piece of paper in front of me, Or maybe I'm looking at the thing I wrote last time. Maybe I kind of like that little character. Or maybe he did something else today. Or I kind of like those images, You know, what if I wrote something that was related in this way or whatever? You know, you start to build work out of it. You know what I mean? All sorts of incredible things start to happen when you develop a practice. And, you know, and, you know, the practice will get your editorial mind out of the way. And on the back end, it will actually train and nurture and grow your creative capacity and your creative imagination, and all that stuff will, it's going to be like you're putting like a lamp on it, man, and it'll just start to fucking eat that light up, man, and it'll just start to blossom and grow and become more active than it's ever been before. It'll just do that because now you're putting it through the paces, you know, and you're making demands on it. You're telling it, we're going to do this now. We're doing it again. We're doing it again. You know, and that willpower begins to push it, and it begins to move in that direction. And just like a plant follows the light, you know what I'm saying? And it's gonna really make a huge difference for you. So if you're interested in getting your writing practice going, think about space and time, and don't be shy about obsessing about all that stuff for a while, because obsessing about creating the practice and implementing the practice and improving the practice, all of that is ultimately gonna just help you have a much more productive writing practice. So let me know if you have a suggestion or a comment. Please reply to this if we're on Steemit. Leave a comment if you're seeing this on YouTube. But tell me what you think about this. Tell me about your writing practice. Tell me, you know, did I miss something in terms of scheduling or in terms of, you know, solutions to find places? If you've ever done an artist residency, or if you have been a writer in residence at some, you know, institution or at a library or something like that. Let me know how that practice affected you, and if that was able to help you focus and get out of your own way and get some writing done. Anyway, yeah, just let me know what's going on. I don't make these videos to tell people what they should do. I do it to have conversations. So let's talk about writing. Have a good day, everybody.